Alright, my friends, so after we have take an overview of all the files and folders that have been created by Create React app, and now we have basic knowledge about these folders and files. It's time for us to start learning about ECMAScript 6, which is our goal in this module, right? So let's go ahead and start learning immediately without wasting any time. So the first topic that I'm going to explain, which is variables. Variables are, before we get started, there are very important things that I want to tell you about before we get started. When you are trying to learn any topic in the programming, not only in the React Native or in the web development or game development whatsoever, in any topic that you want to understand, first of all, ask yourself 3 questions. What, why, and how. Okay, so for example, what variables are, why I'm gonna use variables, and how I'm gonna implement variables. If you have an answer for all these 3 questions, then you are gonna master it. Okay, trust me. So let's go ahead and apply this theory on this topic right here, and let's see if it's gonna work or not. For example, what variables are? Well, variables are just a data containers. Okay, so variables are just a data containers. Now, why we are going to use variables? Variables, it's been used to store data. Okay, why we are going to use it? We are going to use it to store data so we can deal with it later on. Okay, so variables are just a data containers that we are going to use them to store data and deal with it later on. So let's go ahead and see a real example. For example, if I am creating a social network application, so I'm gonna ask you to enter your name in the registration form, so later on I can display it for you. So I'm gonna store your name with a variable, and later on I'm gonna display it for you. Okay, so this is really a real example about variables. Let's go ahead and see how we can implement variables here in action. With the new syntax, or with the new ES6 feature, which is the let and constant, we can create variable in 2 different ways. Okay, first of all, you need to define your variable, like for example, what is the benefit of your variable? For example, if you are planning to store something that it's gonna change later on, okay, for example, if you are trying to store something that it's going to be changed later on, so it's immutable, we can change it later on, so we have a solution for it. And the other way around, which is to store a variable or store a data that it cannot be changed. We cannot reassign the value of it. So let's see a real example here. In order for us to create a variable that we can change it later on, we can type let. Okay, so let, it is the keyword that the compile will understand. Once we type let, then it will expect of us to define something. Okay, in this case we are trying to define a variable, so I'm gonna type let, and here I can give it any name. For example, I'm gonna go with name, then we can type the equal sign, then give it any value that you want. Now just be aware here, assigning a value, it's a different depending on the data or the type of your value. For example, if you want to assign a value of text, then we can add a quotes. Okay, this is one of the rules that we want to follow. If we want to type text, then you have to put it inside quotes like so. All right, so I'm going to give you a general rule that you can understand it. First of all, we are starting with let, then any name that we want, okay, then the equal sign, then the value. All right, so this is like the general rule. We are starting with the let keyword. Okay, we are giving it a name, any name, so we can refer to it later on. Then we are giving the equal sign to assign the value. I'm going to show you the different values that you can use. Just stick with me. All right, so we have the let, then the name, then this thing right here, the equal sign, then the value. All right, Now this is the first type of variables, which is the variables that we can change later on. So if in the future I decided to change my name or update my name, what I can do, I can type name equal to a new value. Okay, let's say Mark or whatsoever, any value that I want to add it right here. So this is a valid code that we can use it inside the web browser. Okay, we can change the value of our variable. And the second way, or the second type of variable, which is the variables that cannot be reassigned in the future. We are starting with the const. Okay, this is like a constant. Okay, we cannot change the value of it later on. I'm just gonna call it, for example, job equal, for example, to Android developer. If I type something like this, then I will be an Android developer always. Okay, I cannot change my job. Okay, if I decided to type something like this, job equal to a new job, okay, for example, web developer, this is not valid. It's gonna throw an error for us. Okay, so once again, we have two different types. The first one is the variables that are changeable, we can change them, and we are defining them with the let keyword. We have the variables that we cannot change them later on, which are, or they are the constant. Okay, and let me just type the rule right here. Okay, they are really similar, and if you are asking yourself how I can make a difference or when I should use these variables, well, there is no real answer for this. Sometimes you are gonna use this and sometimes you are gonna use this. Okay, so these are the only two ways that we can follow in ECMAScript 6 in order for us to define variables. Okay, now before we end this video, I just want to let you, or let's talk about the different values that we can assign right here, because we know that let and constant are JavaScript keywords. We cannot change them. We can change the name for anything that we want. This thing cannot be changed because we have to add an equal sign in both cases, but the value is changeable. We want to know which values we can use right here. Now, if you want to add text, okay, if you want to add text, then you have to add them inside quotes like this. Okay, if you want to add number, okay, then you have to add number like this, okay, by itself. Okay, if you want to add, for example, we have some extra type. For example, we have the Boolean, we have some extra values that we are, or types or data types that we are going to talk about them later on, things like objects or arrays or whatsoever values. But for the time being, I'm just going to type this for you. Okay, and later on we are gonna talk more about data types. Okay, so once again, we have text and you have to add it between quotes. We have number that you can type the number that you want without anything, and we have the Boolean, or this is the Boolean right here, or the bool. If you want to define it, you can type let, for example, is valid equal to true or false. Okay, and a very good example right here, for example, if the user create an account and he didn't verify his email, okay, we can type is valid is equal to false, false like this, and once he click or once he verify his email, we can change the value of is valid to be true like this. Okay, so this is a really good example about the Boolean type of variables. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. This is like a general overview of the variables, and I think that make a lot of sense. Do not worry, we are going to use variables in a real example in the next few videos. Thank you, my friends, so much for watching. See you in the next one.